Welcome to today's episode of the Working Wisdom podcast series, brought to you by the C.T. Bauer College of Business at the University of Houston. We're having a conversation about work-life balance, how to navigate and overcome challenges within your career, and how to make business more accommodating to a diverse workforce.
Hello, everybody. My name is Luke Walther. I am a recent alumni of the University of Houston's Bauer College of Business and the Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship. I am today's host on the Bauer podcast, and my guest is Jessica Bolaños, also a alumni of the University of Houston and the Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship. She is a working entrepreneur in a variety of different fields. Previously has been in hip hop, worked as a brand ambassador, and then moved on to the back end of the camera to where she has worked as a producer with Good Sparrow and her company, both of her companies, Evident Empire Media, Good Sparrow, and has recently transitioned back into being in front of the camera, as well as being a writer and about a dozen other awesome stuff that she brings into her everyday life. On top of this, on sort of a personal level, she has been a mentor to me for the past 4 years. So I'm super excited about this. I can't wait to talk to Jessica. Who is she?
What an awesome intro. And I think that you follow me on social media. How do you know so much about my life?
Well, that is a good question. How do I know so? Wait, did you ask me how I know so much about your life? I was not expecting you to ask me a question right off the jump, but this is actually a good point to plug, or really, I guess I should say the reason why I'm so excited to interview you is that Jessica has come, spoke to Wolf classes and sort of does the open, I would guess you could say introduction to Wolf for people that are interested in joining, as well as speaking at mentor meetings and such things. She's worked as a mentor for several students, both in and outside the program. And every single time that I hear you speak, there's always something more that I found out that I'm really, really excited about. And then I'm just like, oh, here's another question. But that actually brings me, so that's sort of how I know about you. I know about you from, having conversations with you and sort of, viewing, just kind of knowing you, which is something I'm interested to get into that story. But before we do that, I have a couple of popper questions. Are you ready?
Sure. Go ahead.
Awesome. Okay. So what is your favorite thing to write about?
That is a hard one because I would have to say two things. One is introversion and the other is the child-free life. One is super controversial. I don't really enjoy the controversy about talking about the child-free life, but it's something like introversion that I think is important to talk about because there's so few people talking about it. Or, obviously, for anybody that knows me, I am an introvert and I do not want kids. And I love working, and my job and my personal life and everything kind of mixes together. So those are the two main things that I end up writing about, just because I have so many experiences going against the grain in those two areas of my life that I do like to talk about that and write about it.
Fantastic. So, this is how I've done my research. I wanted to ask that because to give a sort of little, for the people listening, a bit of an overview on how we're doing this recording format. I am actually not in Houston at the moment. And so I am on the phone recording this. And I understand it that this is not your favorite form of communication.
I don't ever talk on the phone. Actually, no. You're probably the first person I've talked to besides my mom all year on the phone. I know we just started the year, but yeah, I'm a total texter and social media person.
Now, social media, so that is actually a big component of your work. What is it, you're a big proponent of social media. Why?
It ties into my introversion. I know a lot of people think social media, there's a lot of bad things about social media and there's a lot of good things about social media. We lately have heard a lot of the bad things about social media. And I really think it's just how you use it. And as an introvert, I have a different belief than most of the things I hear now, which is that social media is pulling us apart and, distracting us from one another and the things that matter and blah, blah, blah. Well, I think it's really the way that we're using it, because social media for me is never about wasting time or any of that stuff. I don't get sucked into the black holes of, arguments and, things that offend me. I use it to connect with people. So exactly what people are saying that it's preventing us from doing, using social media for that. And I've basically built my life with my husband around, and our business around, helping people use social media that way, whether it's for your business or, for personal goals. I've used social media since, the MySpace days, before anybody was using social media for business. My name wasn't even my name. It was like the Colombian marketing queen, which makes people cringe now, or maybe me even, but I was using it even then for stuff like that,
Speaking of using social media to connect with people, that I think that what you're speaking about, I think that one of the critiques is, that it makes you, or the one of the critiques of social media is that people use it to waste time and sort of use it as a scented drug. You're getting dopamine from receiving likes, from getting feedback from people, and that has the wasting time aspect. But then there's this other notion of sort of fakeness on social media. How would you say that you ever have any sort of struggle with being transparent and being real on social media?
The only struggle I have with things that I'm posting are things that I think may be not so much controversial, but that may offend people. The nature of my work, I'm the kinds of situations I'm in and the people that we work with, it tends to be sometimes political. I work in the social impact space. So, working with nonprofits that are helping immigrants renew their citizenship before, the next law is passed, where they won't be able to do that anymore after a certain date. And so we're here to spread messages on social media to let them know, they can get this help and, stuff like that.
There's about 1 million different ways or places that we could go with this, because you're kind of hitting on a variety of the things that are related to you. Mm-hmm. So just for an overview, the subject of this is social entrepreneurship. And one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about, and you briefly touched on it, was this sort of life-work integration. Mm-hmm. And I think that what you're talking about with your work, if we go a bit into your background, we've got some branches to go off into. Real quick though, would you give us an overview of what your work looks like today?
Sure. So Good Sparrow is the company that I started with my husband while I was in the Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship, even though back then it was a little different from what it is now. Back then it was called the Good Crowd Fund, and we were crowdfunding for educational campaigns or to get books to kids in South America that didn't have access to educational resources. And then from there, we started kind of teaching the community for free, doing workshops around Houston, teaching other people how to crowdfund and how to do their own campaigns to raise money for their own causes and their own startups. And in that, we met one of our first clients, which changed our life. And they're one of the largest nonprofits in the Gulf region, and they're here in Houston. So they asked us if we could teach them how to do what we were doing. And from there, this was around the time that I graduated from the Wolf Center. So immediately we went into full-time working with Good Sparrow with this client, and really took off from there, just teaching people, like I said, how we were using social media, how to do the things that we were doing, how to use videos. And that kind of branched off into really what we're doing now, using heavy on the video production and social media. So, work like on the video side, just documenting the building of a community center, not just a time lapse of the building going up, but literally, years from the beginning, talks with the architects, them speaking to the communities to hear what the neighborhood actually wanted in those community centers, very deep documenting on video of the process of how this organization did this work. Or we're also working with like Histrionics and Just Add Beats, which those two, Histrionics builds like educational games that make learning fun for kids. So we go in and we've been capturing audio of, the conversations that kids are having while they're playing this game, but they're really learning about very global issues. It's pretty cool to watch. And then they've partnered with Just Add Beats, who, with them, they have like an after school program that teaches youth creative audio production and entrepreneurship. And so then going in there and doing the same thing. And, with those videos and capturing this content allows other people to see the power, the impact they're having. Visuals are very, very strong. So every time people see their videos, we always get somebody to come back to us and ask us to make a video for them and their campaign. So it kind of just spurs from there. We really don't do much marketing ourselves. We're mainly working on other people's video marketing and social media. But yeah, and then we're also working with like Nora Baki, who is also a graduate of the Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship. He was in my class. Every time he has a business idea, he comes to me and Nelson, and we make a video for his new idea. Yep. We've made videos for his, like they were pitching to Shark Tank one time, and we've done all kinds of stuff with them. We're working on one for him now, which I can't really talk about because he is still a startup, but he's doing really, really well.
We're going to be taking a short break to hear a word from our sponsors. And when we return, we will be continuing to talk about social entrepreneurship with Jessica Bolaños.
Whether your background is in liberal arts or engineering, the MBA and MS programs at the CT Bauer College of Business give you the chance to pursue your career passions. Led by world-renowned faculty, our classes allow you to learn by doing and give you the power to transform. For more information, visit mba.uh.edu.
And we're back. So before I hop in, before we make that transition, to the people that aren't aware of what the Wolf Center is, it is a class of around 35 to 40 students that their education is very much project-based. And it's 3 semesters long, about 40 students, all project experience-based, and with starting companies. And so as a result, it sort of gains this ethos or culture of similar to what you would find in startups, of being very fast-paced, very intense, and for that reason, very, at times at least, very difficult, but also extremely close-knit. With that said, Jessica, is there something that I'm missing there that you want to add?
I mean, I definitely agree. The Wolf Center really changed my life. I'll just speak for myself. and everything that I learned there. I mean, it wasn't just entrepreneurship. When I actually went into the Wolf Center for Entrepreneurship, it was because I saw them first in Entrepreneur magazine, and at the time they were the #1 entrepreneurship program in the nation. So I couldn't believe it, for one, that I was in Houston and the #1 program was here. And so when I got here, my real purpose was, I wouldn't say fixing, but improving our first business that we had, which was also a video production company. But as soon as I actually got into the Wolf Center, the first speaker we had was DeMartini, and he really talked about things that were kind of out of my comfort zone. And, you know, the first 2 weeks in there, I remember being really hard because they were just trying to drill into what I felt like they were trying to do, is drill into my head that I can do anything that I wanted to do. And we all have these limits that we put on ourselves. And for me, they were just trying to break those limits. Let us see past all that. And so at the time when I was there, it was called the Personal Purpose. I don't think it's called that now. I think they're just more calling it, what is it? Like you said, like a values class, I believe.
Values and leadership when I went through.
Right, yeah. Back then it was the Personal Purpose, but it's kind of the same idea. We focused on our careers, our family, financial, mental, physical, social and relationships, spiritual, and the serving part of our lives. So not even just entrepreneurship in the entrepreneurship program. It was a complete life change. And that's when we started Good Sparrow, because even though we had another company, after learning all this stuff in there, we just thought we need to completely start over with exactly what we want to do that ties in with all of our values. And Good Sparrow was that for us. And in WCE, you know, we learned about revenues, which was funny because at the time I thought I wanted to be a nonprofit, and my husband and I were doing a nonprofit organization. And it was hard because nobody else was doing a nonprofit in the for-profit school. And people would even ask me about that. Like, why aren't you in the College of Social Work or something? And you know, it's, to me, running a nonprofit is just like running a for-profit. The only difference is our profits go to the cause, and then the for-profits go to the stakeholders. Really, you know, we still need to learn how to make money and have different revenue streams. And you know, those are the kinds of things that the Wolf Center taught us: costs, budgeting, capital. We had a strategy class, business plans, implementing all those plans. It wasn't just theory. It was, you know, we learned, and while I was learning, I was actually creating a business, and I'm still running it today. So it was life-changing. It's amazing. A lot of the clients that I got during that time and still now are tied to either the Wolf Center or Bauer or U of H somehow. But it all is kind of, it's a very close-knit family in there. I love it.
Yeah. I think that actually the biggest takeaway and the main reason that I wanted to join was the fact that, you know, like the people are just incredible. One of the big things that I wanted to work on in my life was returning to values, my spirituality, and my relationship with my family. And so sort of from there, I ended up deciding to move back to Nashville for a period of time, which is where I am now, which is why I'm not there in my beautiful Houston, which I miss so incredibly bad. I cannot tell you. I don't expect to be in Nashville for an incredibly long time. I love the place. And you know, it wasn't, there were these very value driven ideas. But it was also, you know, there was tangible benefits to moving back here and to, you know, having sort of that the support network from my childhood. You were a bit of a non-traditional student coming into Bauer. You said that you discovered it and there were all these different changes, but it seems like you were in a bit of a different situation than a lot of students to begin with.
How so? Are you talking about my age?
Yes, I am referring to your age. Well, I mean,
yeah.
The fact that I'm still young, and maybe
I'm still young too, Luke.
I know that.
I know what you're getting at. I know. I've talked about it before. The non-traditional way. I mean, I can briefly mention that I did graduate. So I graduated high school early with the intention of getting out and going to college early. And I went to a community college for about a year before I just got amazing opportunity to travel the world and do a lot of work with marketing companies. So I did that for a while. And so that's why by the time I got to the Wolf Center, it was a few years later because I had been working and traveling. And then I met Nelson, who became my business partner, co-founder in our first company. And that at that point is when we realized neither one of us knew what we were doing when it comes to business at all. We just kind of started a company from scratch. We didn't need any startup capital. Really, all we needed was a camera at the time, and we just started shooting. So I went back because Nelson's degree was in, he graduated from U of H too, but from the Valenti School. So his degree was in mass media communications, I believe, with the minor in marketing. And I had been studying psychology, which has nothing to do with anything that I'm doing now, kind of. So yeah, that's why I went back, and I might have been around 23 when I got to the Wolf Center or so. So I was, about a decade older than, well, not a decade, almost a decade older than everybody.
I wasn't 13. I'm young. I'm not that young.
Well, yeah, true.
There's some kids that were, really young though.
But I like that about the Wolf Center because, or college in general, I mean, there's all ages everywhere. So
yeah.
But yeah, it helped in such a smaller program where you have so much attention from not just professors, but each other. Learning from all of the age ranges in there was cool.
Absolutely. And you mentioned like there were all these changes and, you started this new company that integrates your values and everything else. Earlier, you mentioned working with these nonprofits and sort of working as a consultant. What would you say the driving value behind your work is?
Well, to start, I wouldn't say I was a consultant. So basically what we do at Good Sparrow, we do make videos and, we help people with social media and we teach them how to make videos and we teach them how to do social media. But at the same time, we do talk about everything we learned at the Wolf Center. We do talk about how is this video, what's the goal of this video? Are you trying to raise money? Are you trying to recruit talent? What are you doing? The purpose of the video is usually most of the time to make money of some sort, to sell some sort of product or service, right? So we do talk about, how, not just how to make the video, but the strategy behind the business itself and how we're going to project that story and how we're going to project the brand. And sometimes, not everybody is as well put together as a large organization. And we do work with smaller organizations. They don't have all of that in mind, or maybe they haven't even talked about it before. So we talk them through all those things. We don't, however, we haven't really said we are consultants and charged for any of this. It's kind of just been something that we do while we are producing videos. So we're going after larger projects that may not just want a video, but that, they do need all this help that we're providing.
So aside from Good Sparrow, what are some of the personal projects that you've been working on?
Well, I'm working on a book, which I feel like, I feel like I've been working on it for years, and I kind of have, but I always delete it, or I don't know. I never actually take it anywhere, but this year I have committed to actually doing the book and publishing the book. And so I'm taking some writing classes right now, they're actually the master classes that you might have seen on Instagram in your feed. Malcolm Gladwell is actually my favorite author, and I was introduced to him by the Wolf Center. Actually, we don't really have books at the Wolf Center, but they do recommend books, and that was one, Outliers. So anyway, I'm taking Malcolm Gladwell's writing class, and I'm taking Margaret Atwood's writing class. She's the one who wrote The Handmaid's Tale, which has changed my life already, because I'm writing nonfiction, and I've never thought of myself as writing fiction. But what I didn't know before I took her class was that The Handmaid's Tale was basically historical fiction, and all the things that happened in that story that I thought it was just fiction, she said it was all real, and she made sure that she picked real things that happened in real life, so that when people would ask her, why are you coming up with all these crazy stories and making men look bad and blah blah blah, she could say, no, these are real stories. And so that was really interesting to me. So I'm writing with these things in mind now, and learning from other writers and authors, and booking writing retreats, which the next one, or the first one I should say, is going to come up in a couple of weeks, which is cool. I'm pretty excited about that.
So this would have been, this is why interviews are great face to face, because I have lost it. I had the biggest grin across my face, because that sounds incredible. I am very excited to read this. Can you tell us what it's about?
Right now, it's at 32 chapters. So I have 32 topics, and I don't know if they're all going to make the final cut, but it's pretty much a little bit about all the things that I write about, but way more in depth. Immigration, women's issues, entrepreneurship, social impact, the child-free life, the vegan life, vegetarian life, just video production, growing up with entrepreneurial parents from Colombia. So that may be the start of the whole book. I'm focusing a lot on that right now and learning, because I just took the 23andMe ancestry thing, or I'm about to. I bought it. And so that's going to be a big part of the book, just telling those stories, growing up in an entrepreneurial family, even though they didn't really speak English, and they came here and just kind of started their own companies, and how that led me to kind of, doing the things that I do naturally, not even thinking that I was going to be an entrepreneur. But so that kind of thing, not just my story, but also other people's stories. And then I'm taking things like Margaret Atwood's little hints and tricks, and maybe putting in some historical fiction in there, because some of the things that I was worried about, that I think a lot of writers are worried about when they write something that's especially about them, is sharing some of the really hard stories. I have a lot of really hard stories that I want to tell that either I've only told in private or I've never told at all. Especially Me Too stories, and, very touchy subjects like that, that I don't really want to get into specifics of on my own behalf. So maybe I can create these characters that tell those stories, and nobody will know which of them are mine and which of them are somebody else's. And so that's kind of the way I'm getting around it. And, that's how I got past the writer's block this year.
That is really, really powerful.
Thank you.
I really like that because what it's sort of allowing you to do is to, one of the things that I really promote is like transparency and being out there and being open. And simultaneously, there are certain things that, do eventually become, off limits. And yet there's still this necessity to talk about these things that are really difficult because they matter and they impact people's lives.
Yeah.
And there's a story called A True War Story, where it talks about this notion of sometimes integrating a component of fiction makes the story more true because, and obviously the situation is different and, the intentions are different, but in that one, it really emphasizes this idea that there is a necessity for emotion. And when you're using tools like that to give yourself that sort of entire emotional range without compromising yourself, I think that is really, truly something powerful. And I'm incredibly excited to see it. This was absolutely fantastic. Yeah, to read it.
Actually, you did touch on something. Reading it, seeing it, because Nelson is working on the visual part of this with me. There will be, I'm kind of like the Beyonce, making like a whole visual album. Yeah, a book with visuals.
And everyone can check you out on how and where should they check you out?
Please, on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. It's at Fancy Capitalist on everything.
Fancy Capitalist. Well, Jessica, you are my favorite fancy capitalist. My name is Luke Walter. You can check me out at Lucas Waffle on Instagram. And if you're interested in my movie, it is at chasing.donuts on Instagram or chasingdonuts.com. And with that said, thank you everyone for listening to the Bauer podcast. This is Luke Walter with my guest, Jessica Bolaños. Y'all have a fantastic rest of the day.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Working Wisdom podcast series from the C.T. Bauer College of Business, brought to you by the Working Families Initiative. The initiative aims to provide support and access for women in business school and the workforce, and to generate research that organizations can use to implement policies and standards to benefit a diverse workforce. For more information about Bauer College and this podcast series, visit www.bauer.uh.edu/podcast.